moving on, Andrew. What's your thoughts on the NBA coming back without fans? Of course, they have been in the mix. There's nothing that's certain so far, but something that's been talked about in potentially a month or two, that the NBA would be coming back without fans, playing in a bubble, essentially. Mostly talked about that it would be in Disney World, and that all the players would be basically just be going in and out of this hotel room and going to play a game. But do you see this happening in a month or two?
I'm hopeful and optimistic that this will happen. We already see it with other leagues like I wouldn't say, depends on what you classify as a sport, but the WWE was able to hold a pretty big event in the sports entertainment world, and they were able to hold it without fans, and I think people enjoyed it. And I think they enjoyed it because A, it was wrestling, and B, they felt some type of normalcy. And I feel like with the NBA coming back with such a big cultural impact it has on society, I think it's a good sign for people that normalcy is just around the corner. We're still a little bit of ways off, but it'd be great to see the NBA back, and it'd be very interesting how they are able to work everything around out having fans there. I think some people even mentioned that there should be a mature version and a TV-14 version where either you cut the mics of all the players or you're able to not hear what they're saying for the kids, and then a version where you can hear everything they're saying. I think the NBA is still worried about the GMs anyway are still worried about coaches and staff health because a lot of coaches are over the age of 60, and some of them have underlying conditions that could be at risk if we do come back.
To go off of that, Greg Popovich is 71 years old. He's like the most at risk person. Like coaches, and like you said, like coaches and assistant coaches, they're in this area of, they are at risk if they're going outside. And you bring up normalcy and like the WWE. Did you watch any of that?
I was hearing it through other people how it was at the time.
And I'm going to tell you, I didn't hear positive things about it. I mean, I'm a wrestling. I do like my wrestling. And Undertaker's match, which wasn't held in a wrestling ring, was said to be kind of cheesy. And they could get away with it because it's only two people. But we're talking about players. We're talking about coaches. We're talking about referees. We're talking about people filming. And also, scheduling and rotating players in and out of this place or multiple places that they can get sick. I mean, what happens if, the Lakers' Kuzma ends up getting the coronavirus? Do they shut down? What if LeBron James gets it, right? And the Lakers are going to say, we don't want to play if we don't have our best player. That's the whole point why we're here and why fans would be watching. It just seems like there's a lot more question marks for this.
Right. It's not going to be a perfect science, to be honest, but it gives some hope to fans that this could potentially come back. And this could be a sign of, this could be, kind of like the benchmark of what work will look like in the future, in a way, for the rest of the country. Because you have to also, like you mentioned the players, the coaches, the staff, and then you have to also remember the people who are working the arena, the event staff. This is their normal job.
Now, of course, Andrew, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Right, absolutely.
But assuming that the NBA does come back, there's no fans. You've already mentioned that maybe they could mic up the players and they could have a PG version and a rated R version where we could actually hear the trash talking going on. If you're a commentator, a lot of times as a commentator, they're trained professionals and they go based off of how the fans reacting, what they see, timeouts, things going on within the play that not necessarily the person at home could see. I'm kind of curious how the commentators would adjust to an arena without fans and commentating on the game.
It'd be very interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. These guys are professionals. I'm sure they have stuff. They've been workshopping a lot of ideas, and I trust that they'll come up with something good.
So in Korea, they've recently come back with some normalcy and having some professional sports come back. And in Korea, what they did is they put fake fans and cutouts in the stands. Since this is going to be in Disney World potentially, do you think they're going to do something similar?
I would love to see Goofy in the stands. I would love to see Spider-Man in the stands.
Ooh. That you could get all those guys. I would
love to see Darth Vader sitting courtside.
Well, yeah, naturally.
I mean, that's a very cool idea, and at least it gives you something. I'm sure it will be eerie for players and a little funny, but it's a good way to just, fill the stand. They do it in movies all the time, and of course they have all those camera tricks and everything like that. Or they could maybe digitally insert fans into the seats. I think that'd be another interesting thing to do. Or they can put cutouts of all the first responder people, like cops, firefighters, nurses, people who are on the front lines, in the stands.
Like an homage.
Yeah, exactly, like an homage. So I think that would be a very cool idea.
What about you and I? We've been to many Bulls games, and something we always make a comment about is the sound effects of when a player makes like a made basket or like a swish, how they have microphones near the rim so you could hear the swish sound when it goes in. Do you think they do something like that with the fans' voices if basketball were to come back, like fake sound effects of fans cheering? Or do you think they just keep it as it is, like you're watching a pickup game?
That's another very interesting, innovative idea. I know for my basketball practices, sometimes, when I was varsity coach, our coach would sometimes simulate fans in the stands by playing, crowd sounds over the intercom just to show how loud it can get in a gym. So that could be an interesting, innovative thing that they do. I know I think I mentioned in another podcast before where I've seen highlights on YouTube of professional soccer teams playing in an empty arena because they had banned the fans from coming for whatever reason. And it sounds weird for sure because you could hear everything.
Interesting. That was just a thought that came to mind.
And I think the NBA is super innovative, and they will figure something cool out that they can do. If
they come back.
And Mark Cuban's got a lot of great ideas, so just go to that guy.
So let's say the NBA does come back, Andrew. What do you think is the best scenario? Do they go straight to the playoffs, or do they finish the season? Like the Atlanta Hawks already said they don't want to come back, and that's mostly because they have one of the worst records in the NBA.
I say teams 9th and 10th, depending on where they're pushing in the playoff seedings. I think you go from 10-1. Maybe if teams have already clinched, they don't have to play as well. There's a lot of questions there too that I'm sure the NBA has been thinking about. It'd be interesting to see them play the last 17 games of the season.
That would be cool, but it almost sounds too unrealistic. Did you suggest that they expand the playoffs or like the playoff bracket?
No, not the playoff bracket. I think they just let whoever's in 10th place, whoever's in they would have to look at how many games back they are from the playoff spot. But just to see if the 10th or 9th team can push for the 8th spot. Include them still, have the regular season, but only include 10 through 1 or whoever clinched.
Well, then what if the 10th, East team was supposed to play the Atlanta Hawks and the Atlanta Hawks aren't allowed to play? I mean, how would they be able to do that?
Give them a win. That's a win anyway.
So you're just assuming wins then?
Just give them if it's the Hawks, just say that's a win. I think in the fighting game video game community, they call that a free win.
A free win?
You get a free win.
You never know when Trae Young is going to go for 50 on you. He was the starting guard in the East this year in the
but then
All-Star game.
But then they only score 80 points.
That's true. If the NBA does come back, my solution is you just go straight to the playoffs. At this point, I think it's bigger than basketball right now. That if basketball does come back, that we don't need to have all these season teams play. Unless if you really want that, then you wait like about a year until everything has passed, and then you bring these players back and finish off the season. But if you really want this season to end, I would recommend just going right into the playoffs with 1 through 8 at this point.